If you're burned out right now creating content, odds are what you've learned, what you've been taught about how to do it is wrong for you. Odds are you were taught something like you need to be posting several times a day or several times a week consistently. You need to show up every single day. It's all about showing up. It's all about taking your existing content and slicing it into tiny little pieces and just getting as much of a volume of content out there as possible. And on the surface, that advice is fine. It is effective. And a lot of it actually comes from an ethos that you would disagree with as a coach. Let me explain why. Let's unpack this a little bit and let me show you a different relationship to your content, to your creativity that I think will be more helpful for you. Because there's basically two ways to approach content. One way to approach content is to really play for the algorithm. And it's to engineer every second, every ounce of energy that you have going into that video, into that post around what benefits the algorithm. What is the algorithm like? What does the algorithm want? Doing this means that you're best suited hooking attention, using principles and tactics that assume the audience is distracted, that they're not going to pay any attention, that they have the attention span of a gnat. They're kind of buzzing around, flying around, exhausted, drained in their own little world, lost in the woods. And you got to literally like bait them like a fish and hook them and throw the steel hook through their mouth and yank and say, get the fuck over here and pay attention to what I'm trying to tell you. It assumes the audience is stupid, assumes the audience has no natural interest in your topic. And as such, rather than trying to earn attention, you have to demand attention. You have to use some kind of trick in the very beginning. Maybe do something weird, do something that catches their attention. Try to hit them with 5 different quick clips all at once in the first second of your video. Say something like, hey, check this out. Play on psychological tactics that demand attention. And then, because again, the post itself is not good enough, continue to hold their attention with more tricks. And the entire premise just assumes that your audience just doesn't give a shit about the topic. Like they're not actively participating and trying to resolve it or get to a higher level. And so one of the key tactics that goes with this then is you try to get yourself out there as much and as often as possible. It's a quantity game. It's a numbers game. And it's also about dumbing down your approach. It's not about trying to go into too much depth, too much detail. It's about trying to reduce everything to just one simple idea. Make it a digestible soundbite, a digestible little nugget that your audience can get, like a little bag of Doritos they can eat. It's not going to challenge them too much. It's not going to demand them to think critically. It's going to spell things out. Again, it just assumes they're essentially an idiot. And you're having to vie for their attention in a very noisy, crowded landscape. So you better do something to win them over. That's one approach. And that's typically how social media is taught. There's another way, though, that is rarely ever taught. There are a few people. One of my close friends actually embodies this in her work. There's a few people that have this approach. And this is what I teach as well. And that is assuming the audience is not an idiot. Assuming the audience actually wants to dive into your topic. Assuming that you don't need to hook their attention. You don't need to bait them. You don't need to artificially game them. You're not creating content for an algorithm. You're mindful of what the algorithm pays attention to, but you're not creating content for the algorithm. You're creating content for one human being on the other end that is earnestly wanting to overcome a challenge that you are really good at helping them navigate. And as such, you assume that they earnestly want help with this, and you create from that space. Also, instead of trying to necessarily post consistently, you find a flow that really honors you. And that might mean that you actually take space and time away from social media from time to time. You honor more of the cycle of your own nature, your own rhythm. You notice, hey, there's times when I really want to, I have a lot to say, and I really want to honor that, and I want to flow. And during that time, you don't necessarily have to restrict yourself to just X number of posts a day. You can do more. You can do 2 or 3 a day. There's going to be other times, likewise, where you feel a call to return inward, to not post as much. And these cycles might last weeks. They might even last up to a month or months. But you honor that. You recognize it takes creative and energetic output to get things out there. So instead of trying to fight that in yourself to be this machine, this mechanical, constantly posting machine, constantly cranking out all these sound bites, like a chef that's just constantly serving Doritos every meal because they think their audience is too stupid and dim-witted to appreciate a really good and well-cooked meal. You do the opposite. You also create delicious meals that you pour your heart and your mind into. Instead of just cranking out for the sake of cranking out, you explore with passion what you're most fired up about. And maybe that means that there's a burst of inspiration and flow, and you get that post out all in the same hour, the same day. Maybe it means you start it on a Monday and finish it on a Friday. Maybe it means you start it in January and finish it in July. But you honor where you are at intrinsically in the creative process. Now, I'm not saying there won't be moments of resistance and times when you really don't feel like posting. You really don't feel like sharing. A big part of this is really confronting yourself as a writer, as a creator. Ultimately, that is your biggest barrier. It's you. It's not what your audience thinks. It's not how your audience responds. It's not even the crickets that you get, the lack of attention you get, or the wrong attention you receive. It's your projecting all those things that may or may not happen. That's really the biggest battle. It's you against you. So it's not all just beautiful flow state creativity. There will be times when you're diving into a topic and you're frustrated that you don't have the language for what you're trying to express. You've had an experience of truth, or you've had a coaching session with one of your clients, and there's an experience of truth in that session you don't understand how to put into language yet. And it is frustrating. It feels like it's right there. And again, there's other times when you're just in flow and you don't have to think and try as hard. And I believe your creativity is about honoring that, because when you're trying to just game the algorithm all the time, and again, you go back to that assuming your audience only wants Doritos all the time, playing for dopamine is fine if you're selling a product. If you're not really selling anything, if you're just trying to create content that gets views to get sponsorship, to get ad revenue, that's fine. But at the end of the day, you're not trying to reach that dopamine fueled part of someone. That's the part of someone that doesn't want to change, that doesn't want to transform. They don't want to do hard work and roll up their sleeves and look in the mirror. They want easy fixes and easy solutions. And by coddling them and their, again, dopamine addicted brain, you're actually turning off and turning away the part of them that would be open to a transformation, whether they end up hiring you or not. Because I also believe that your content should be at least initiating a transformation for that person, at least planting some seeds, at least starting the process of having them become someone new. Because at the end of the day, that's who you're trying to reach. So instead of doing the tricks and the gimmicks and just posting because it's what the algorithm likes, post based on who you want to reach, at the depth of that person that you want to reach. If you want to reach the part of them that, again, is open to really doing meaningful work, do you need to give them so many Doritos, or is that part of the problem? Think about it for a second. I mean, how often are you frustrated? How often do people come to you and you've explored a little bit around what they've tried so far to overcome the problem? And they volunteered a little bit about what they're reading, watching, what they're checking out, what they're learning, what their current paradigm is. And how many times have you heard a surface level solution? Do you want to be one of those surface level solutions? Or is your work about doing something deeper? If that's the case, you need to go deeper with your content. All good content meets people at the surface and then it takes them deeper. So as you're creating your message, as you're creating your content, you want to be thinking about, what is my ideal client really going through? What is their paradigm? What are they really thinking about when it comes to this problem? What do they think is happening? And how can I explore that? And how can I start to turn that on its head? And if you do a good job of doing this, you don't have to use so many tricks and hacks to win over attention. The attention is earned from a different mechanism, a different process. Your attention is earned because you're offering orientation to your audience. You can show them things that they haven't seen before. And that means giving them an insight or connecting dots that don't seem to go together. Again, that's an insight. You can give them these little epiphanies. You can empower your audience. You can show them how they've been brainwashed or taught wrong or conditioned in a way that moves them away from who they really are. You can reveal illusions. You can show them how something seems like it's true, but on the surface, it seems right, but underneath the surface, it's not. All these things, though, require you to passionately dwell on the subject. Because if you can do that, and again, the key word there is passion. Instead of just serving up fast food and French fries all the time through your content and expecting that to lead to somebody hungry for something really nourishing, and you have to somehow overcome that disconnect. And by the way, I've actually worked with a number of people that have huge social media followings and don't have the client base they want. And this is the primary reason. I look at their content and look at how great it is. It's geared for the algorithm, but it's not geared for the transformation. It's not geared for the magnitude of the work they want to do with someone. That's why there's such a significant disconnect in their offer and people aren't taking them up on it. They want low-level answers because their content they're getting is low-level insight. So it's very difficult to take someone from very surface level, cranking this stuff out as fast as I can just to get something out there, insight, to I want a transformative experience with you. It's too great of a leap. But if in your content, you're really starting to take people there, booking that discovery call with you feels like a natural continuation of that. And I find this work really burns you out a whole hell of a lot less. I mean, are you doing this just because you're good at coaching? Are you doing this just because you want clients? Or are you doing this because you genuinely care about this topic? You genuinely give a damn? Are you doing this because you really want to see a difference in this space? These are topics you should be fired up about. You should want to explore. You should want to challenge the status quo on. So instead of gaming the algorithm, create from a place of, let me impact one person with this. Let me really turn this thing on its head. Let me really investigate this. Dwell on it a little bit. Dive into it. And let me honor the creative flow in myself as I do that, instead of looking at how I'm a machine that needs to crank out all this stuff. And you would be surprised at how more prolific you can be. Ironically, you'll actually appease the algorithm even more because you'll have just more creative output. You'll create of more value. You'll build an audience faster, and you'll build a much deeper, richer connection with the audience as well. And people, I believe, especially those that are really open to coaching with you, they know, they can tell if you put this kind of heart and soul into your work or not. If you're just doing it selfishly, transactionally, to again get clients and money, they feel that. Even if they can't articulate it, they know. And they can see the difference between someone that does this and someone that does not, someone that really cares, someone that really is trying to help move the needle in consciousness around a particular topic. So if you are burned out, if someone has told you, hey, you need to be on this platform, you need to be doing these kind of videos, you need it to look like this, sound like this. If that doesn't feel right to you, it's okay to give them the finger and not do any of that. Think about the transition from your content to that discovery call. Think about the depth you want to work with someone at, and ask yourself, is your content taking them to that depth? And then finally ask yourself, are you also going to that depth when you create?